Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that incredibly kind welcome. I do appreciate it. Chancellor Hawgood, Dean King, esteemed faculty and staff, proud family and friends, and most importantly, graduates of the class of 2017. I am just so thrilled to be with you as you celebrate this special milestone. Now, whether you are the first doctor in your family or the next in a long lineage of healers, I know how much pride you have brought to your families today. Now, it's a particular honor for me to join you at UCSF because this university has a special place in my heart. It's where I spent a summer in medical school, working at the Osher Center. It's where my best friend went to medical school. It's where my mother-in-law worked for 17 years. And it's where a dedicated and talented team, led by Dr. Corvera, saved my father-in-law's life 2 years ago. And I will forever be grateful to them and to UCSF. Now, over the last several years, all of you have been on a journey together. And many of you probably found yourselves doing things that you never imagined you would. Like eating right after anatomy lab before you had a chance to wash your hands. And even more disturbingly, not being too bothered by it. Or like eating food from unused patient trays. Because as they say in the hospital, eat when you can and pee when you can. Now, you've also spent thousands of hours studying, at least most of you. And you have grappled with difficult family situations and with the death of your patients. You have served your community, volunteering in clinics to care for the poor, the homeless, and the undocumented. And you have built the Do No Harm Coalition to advance the cause of justice in our communities. As I understand it, you have also consumed dangerously high doses of caffeinated beverages at the Moffeteria and Pete's and Phil's. But as you reflect on today, I also know that for many of you, today is an unlikely moment, and your journey to this place was unexpected and perhaps improbable. Like many of you, my journey to this stage was a rather unlikely one as well. If life was governed entirely by probability, I would be growing rice, tamarind, and coconuts in a small farming village in South India, struggling to clothe and to feed my family. Because this was the life that my grandfather led, and it was the life that my father was destined to lead. But the funny thing about dreams is they take root in unlikely places. And my father, in the midst of bracing poverty, found himself dreaming of a brighter future, full of opportunity in a land far away. He found himself dreaming of America. Nearly 40 years ago, my parents managed to come to America with little money and few connections, but with high hopes for the life that they hoped to build for themselves and for their children, for my sister and me. They inspired me to become a doctor through their own care for patients, and they raised my sister and me to believe that America was a place where your ideas and your willingness to work hard mattered more than the color of your skin or the sound of your accent or the fact that you had a funny-sounding name. And despite all of our imperfections as a nation, I stand here before you fully aware that in no other country in the world could the son, the grandson of a poor farmer from India be asked by the president to look out for the health of an entire nation. That is the power and promise of America, and I'm truly grateful for it. Now, as you step out into this new world with your new degrees, you might ask yourself, exactly what kind of world am I inheriting? Now, if you consume a lot of media, which I would strongly advise against because it can be hazardous to your health. But if you do, you likely feel a sense of unease, uncertainty, and anxiety. And while the challenges we face are real, I also want you to know how much possibility and hope the world holds for you. Each day I travel the country as Surgeon General, I saw reasons to be optimistic about America in the stories and faces of people I met in small towns and big cities. The community members in Flint, Michigan, who organized volunteers to go door to door to educate their neighbors about how to drink safe water, even though their families were often in danger. The Native American children who ran the I Am Indian program in Oklahoma to strengthen Indian culture among their peers and to prevent experimentation with alcohol and drugs. The doctors I met in Virginia who began planting gardens behind their clinic so they could provide food for patients who didn't have enough. And the parents that I met all across America who had tragically lost a child to a drug overdose, but who were transforming their pain into a passion for education and advocacy so that other parents could be spared their unspeakable tragedy. There is a lot of good to be found in the world, if only we are willing to look for it. But there are real challenges too. We are struggling with an epidemic of chronic illness, particularly substance use and addiction. We have millions of people who are uninsured and underinsured, and these are our brothers and sisters, not strangers. And we are paying the price as a country for underinvesting for decades in prevention and public health. But perhaps most alarming to me is that there is a deep sense of division in our country that is fueled by fear. Fear of change and fear of the unknown that far too often translate into a fear of people who are different from us. Fear that leads us to lose sight of our core values of equality, opportunity, and respect for all. Fear that leads us to retreat to our corners instead of standing together to take on tough problems. Division and fear are contributing to the epidemic of chronic stress that is gripping our nation, an epidemic that is fueling violence, alcohol and drug use, and chronic disease. Now, what does it mean for all of you to be graduating and setting sail in such a world? It means that in addition to providing the best possible care to the patient in front of you, there's another important responsibility that you must take on. The world needs you to embrace your role as a moral leader in society. A moral leader in society. A moral leader who inspires us to reflect our values in our words and actions, and who leads by example. A moral leader who brings people together and enables them to see each other more clearly for who they really are. Being a moral leader means standing up for truth, reason, and science. It means speaking out for the most vulnerable among us. It means not being afraid to write op-eds in your local paper or to appear in local media when proposed policies would hurt your community. And it means holding elected leaders accountable for meeting the needs and upholding the values of our communities. Now, historically, many of us have been reluctant to take on such a role. We've been told that we should shy away from wading into controversy or appearing political. But your obligation from today onward is to stand up for the vulnerable and the voiceless. And if that means engaging in controversy, then do it anyway. If that means taking the risk of being labeled as political, then do it anyway. Because principles are only worth having if you have the courage to act on them. You now have a powerful voice. Use it to improve people's lives. As you embark on this journey to be the moral leaders that our society needs, there are three things that I wish for you. The first is clarity, the ability to see clearly whether we are holding true to our values. Moral clarity requires us to reflect honestly on our words, on our actions, and on how we are treating each other. It requires us to ask that most difficult of questions: are we measuring up to our highest standards? Now, one conversation that will remain forever etched in my memory was one I had with the father of a young boy who had been tragically killed in that heartbreaking school shooting in Newtown, Connecticut in 2012. The boy's name was Daniel, and he had a special gift. Whenever there was someone who was left out or sad on the playground or in the cafeteria, Daniel would notice, and he would walk over and talk to them, or just simply sit by them. Daniel was all of 6 years old. Yet he noticed when the values of kindness and inclusion were not reflected in the world around him, and he chose to act. We need more people with Daniel's moral clarity. And as you look at your life and the world around you, ask yourself whether we are living up to our values of equality, opportunity, and respect for all. Because we cannot fix what we cannot see. The second gift I wish for you is courage. Courage is not the absence of doubt and uncertainty. I want to be very clear on that. Courage is not the absence of doubt and uncertainty. Courage is the ability to move forward even in the face of uncertainties and fear. Courage is what will allow you to speak the truth and to defend the truth, especially when it is difficult. When the Twin Towers fell on 9/11 on that fateful morning 16 years ago, thousands of Manhattan residents fled south, looking for an escape from the growing inferno behind them. But instead of relief, they were greeted by the unforgiving waters of the Hudson, which offered no path to safety. The panicked crowd continued to grow until the U.S. Coast Guard made a critical decision. They issued a radio call to every civilian boat in the area, asking them to join in an unprecedented civilian rescue mission. The response was overwhelming. Within minutes, the Hudson was covered with scores of boats streaking toward the southernmost tip of Manhattan. They pierced through the dense cloud of dust and debris and brought soot-covered people on board, offered them water, and ferried them to safety. In 9 hours, nearly 500,000 people were rescued. The 9/11 boat lift became the largest boat rescue in the history of the world. Now, the 9/11 boat lift was powered by ordinary people. They were never trained in emergency response, and they never would have thought of themselves as heroes. They also had every reason to flee for safety themselves. But their courage is what allowed them to act. Vincent Ardolino, the captain of the Amberjack, said that his wife thought that he was a maniac for wanting to take his boat toward Manhattan that day. But after getting the call, he knew that he had to go. Never go through life saying you should have, he said later when reflecting on the decision. If you want to do something, you do it. To provide the moral leadership that our country needs, to close that gap between our highest values and our status quo requires courage. Courage to speak the truth, courage to model our values, and courage to demand change when it is needed. The third and final gift that I wish for you is love. I have come to believe over time that there are only two emotions that ultimately drive our actions: love and fear. Love has its many manifestations, like generosity, compassion, forgiveness, kindness, and joy. Fear has its manifestations as well, like jealousy, anger, anxiety, cynicism, and insecurity. While fear can be motivating in the short term, it is exhausting in the long term. Operating out of fear for a prolonged period of time leaves individuals and societies hollowed out, depleted, and bitter. The challenge we face today is that our world is locked in a struggle between love and fear. We see it in discussions around the dinner table and in our workplaces. We see it in our public discourse and in our politics. As moral leaders in society, there's a fundamental question of identity that we have to ask ourselves. Will we be a nation that is governed by fear? Or will we be a nation that, when confronted with the choice, chooses love over fear? Now, there will always be some who choose to lead by instilling fear. This has been true throughout history. But fear is the crutch of cowardly leaders. Leading with fear is a weapon, is a weak approach that scorches the spirit and leaves everyone less whole. True leadership means leading with that ultimate source of strength, love. As society's newest leaders, the choice of how to lead is up to you. Choose to lead with love, always. It is the world's oldest medicine. It is our greatest source of power and healing. Graduates of the class of 2017, I stand here before you to tell you in no uncertain terms that America needs you. This is your time to step up and be the moral leaders our country needs. Leaders who can inspire us to live by our highest ideals. With your voice and your example, you can remind our country of who we are when we forget. As you go forward to live the rest of your lives, remember that the future is very hard to predict. I remember on graduation day thinking that I could map out the future and just follow my plan. You probably know how that turned out. I was wrong. I could not have known which relationships would break my heart and which ones would help it heal. I could not have known that it would be a chance conversation between appetizers and the main course at a fellowship dinner that would lead me to the partner with whom I would build a technology company. I could never have known that it would be a petition on fixing our healthcare system that would lead me to the love of my life, my wife Alice. And I could never know that the greatest moment of my journey as Surgeon General would not be issuing the nation's first report on addiction or visiting my commissioned corps officers who were fighting Ebola in West Africa, as gratifying as those were. It would be the birth of my son, who has become my true north and my guide. We cannot plan out the future entirely, but what we can do is be clear about the values that guide us. Never forget that the most important qualities that you need to change the world for the better are the ones that you had long before you came to UCSF. Your ability to care deeply about a fellow human being. Your ability to be authentic in your words and actions. Your ability to lead with love. Because your lives will only get more full and fast-paced in the future, there's one last thing that I wish for you. Moments of pause, where you can stop, rest, and reflect. This might be a few minutes to write in your journal, to meditate, or simply to breathe. The world won't automatically give us these moments of pause. We have to create them. But those moments of calm, those are the moments where we gather ourselves and set forth with a clear mind and a renewed heart. And if we ever forget the power of pausing, we need only take our hand and put it on our chest and remember the lesson of our heart. As all of our graduates now know, the heart operates in two phases, systole and diastole. Sound familiar? Systole, as our graduates know, is when blood is pumped to the vital organs, and diastole is where it relaxes. Now, most people assume that systole is where all the action is. The more time in systole, the better. But diastole, the relaxation phase, is where the coronary blood vessels fill and supply life-sustaining oxygen to the heart muscle itself. Pausing, it turns out, is what sustains the heart. I'd like you to take 10 seconds with me and close your eyes. Think about the people whose kindness and love have helped make today a reality. I'll keep track of the time. Class of 2017, the people you thought of are your anchors. They stand with you and the world stands before you brimming with possibility. You have been on a journey, but our journey does not end with graduation today, or even with the completion of residency or fellowship. Our journey ends when no parent ever has to choose between paying the rent and buying healthy food for their kids. It ends when violence no longer takes the lives of children whose only crime was being born in an unsafe neighborhood. It ends when health is no longer the privilege of the few, but the birthright of all people. Our journey ends when wisdom prevails over ignorance, when hope transcends cynicism, and when love triumphs over fear. That is the America that we deserve. That is the America that we must demand of ourselves and each other. And with your hard work and with God's grace, this is the America that we will build for each other and for future generations. My fellow physicians, I hope you always run toward that which you love. I wish you many moments of diastole. May you have lives full of joy, full of connection, and full of love. Congratulations.